Jordan, a musician, purchased an antique piano from an estate sale. The piano was beautiful, with intricate carvings and an elegant design. When Jordan played it, the sound was hauntingly beautiful, though it carried an eerie undertone that unsettled him. At first, Jordan was fascinated by the piano's unique tone. However, as days passed, he noticed something strange. The piano began to play by itself. Soft melodies would drift through the room in the dead of night, and Jordan would wake to find the keys moving, as if an invisible hand was pressing them. Determined to uncover the mystery, Jordan researched the piano's history. He discovered that it had once belonged to a composer named Victor Lestrange, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances. Victor was known for his melancholic compositions, and local legends said his spirit remained tied to the piano. One night, Jordan was practicing at the piano when the melody grew more intense and ominous. The keys moved with a force of their own, creating discordant, unsettling notes. The room grew colder, and Jordan felt an oppressive presence surrounding him. The melody seemed to echo the torment and despair Victor had experienced before his disappearance. Jordan consulted a historian who specialized in haunted artifacts. The historian revealed that Victor's final composition was a tragic piece, believed to be a reflection of his descent into madness. The melody had become a conduit for Victor's restless spirit, forever trapped in the piano's music. Despite his fear, Jordan felt compelled to play the melody through. As he did, the room was filled with a cacophony of ghostly voices and phantom music, growing louder and more frantic. Jordan felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the spirit of Victor was trying to communicate something urgent and tragic. When Jordan finished playing, the room fell eerily silent. The piano's keys stopped moving, and the temperature returned to normal. However, the haunting melody had left a lasting impact. Jordan could no longer bear to be near the piano. He decided to sell it, hoping to rid himself of the oppressive presence. The piano was sold to an unsuspecting buyer, who soon began experiencing similar disturbances. The haunting melody persisted, leaving a trail of fear and despair wherever the piano went. Jordan, meanwhile, was left with haunting memories of his encounter, and the melody's echoes lingered in his dreams, a chilling reminder of the spirit trapped within the keys. Anna was a newly hired nurse at a rural hospital, known for its old architecture and occasional electrical issues. One night, she was assigned to the night shift alone in the ward. The hospital had a chilling reputation for strange occurrences, but Anna was skeptical until she encountered something truly terrifying. Around midnight, Anna received a call about a new patient who had been admitted. The name on the chart was unfamiliar, but the room number matched a recently vacated room. When she entered, she found a frail old man lying in the bed, his eyes closed as if in sleep. Despite her best efforts, the man did not respond to her care. An eerie coldness filled the room, and Anna's unease grew. By morning, the man had vanished, leaving only an empty bed and cold sheets. The hospital records showed no record of the patient, and the room had been empty for months. The incident was chalked up to a mistake, but Anna was haunted by the encounter. The phantom patient, she realized, was likely a ghost of someone who had died under mysterious circumstances, forever searching for solace in the hospital's dark corners. When Lucas moved into his new apartment, his friends gifted him a vintage mirror as a housewarming present. The mirror was ornate and beautiful, with an intricate frame. Lucas admired it, though it had an odd, musty smell. He hung it in his bedroom, but soon noticed strange occurrences. At night, Lucas would hear faint whispers and see shadows moving in the mirror's reflection. The shadows seemed to interact with him, as if trying to communicate. Disturbed, Lucas tried to ignore it, but the disturbances escalated. He saw dark figures approaching him in the mirror, and sometimes they appeared to be reaching out. One night, Lucas decided to investigate the mirror's origins. He discovered it had once belonged to a family who had suffered a series of tragic deaths, each one marked by eerie phenomena. The mirror, it turned out, was a conduit for restless spirits seeking vengeance or recognition. Lucas decided to dispose of the mirror, but the haunting images lingered in his mind, leaving him with an enduring sense of dread. Emma and her partner, Jake, bought an old, charming house with an intriguing layout. While renovating the basement, they discovered a hidden door behind a wall. Curious, they pried it open and found a small, dusty room filled with old books, journals, and disturbing artifacts. Among the items was a journal detailing bizarre experiments and occult practices. The previous owner, a reclusive scholar, had conducted experiments on the boundaries between life and death. Strange symbols and notes suggested attempts to contact otherworldly entities. Emma and Jake soon noticed strange occurrences, unexplained noises, cold spots, and unsettling dreams. One night, Jake saw a shadowy figure standing at the door to the secret room. Terrified, they contacted a paranormal investigator, who confirmed the presence of lingering spirits. The investigator's findings suggested that the experiments had left a lingering disturbance. Emma and Jake decided to seal the room permanently, but the feeling of being watched never left their home. Claire was a late-night radio DJ known for her spooky shows and urban legends. One evening, she received a call from a listener who claimed to be in a dire situation. The caller's voice was distorted, and the details of the story were unsettling. A tale of being pursued by something malevolent. As Claire continued her broadcast, the listener's story grew more disturbing, with details aligning eerily with local unsolved disappearances. The caller mentioned knowing intimate details about Claire's own life, including her family. Concerned, Claire contacted the authorities. They traced the call to an abandoned building nearby. When the police arrived, they found no trace of the caller or any evidence of recent activity. The building was empty, and Claire's fears grew as she realized the caller had been a ghostly entity, relaying the final moments of a tragic event. The broadcast had been a chilling message from beyond, blending horror with reality. Sam adopted a stray dog named Max from a local shelter. Max was affectionate, but seemed oddly anxious around the house. Strange things began happening, objects moving on their own, doors opening and closing without explanation. One day, Max vanished without a trace. Sam searched everywhere but found no sign of him. A few days later, Max reappeared at the doorstep, looking disheveled and fearful. Sam noticed that Max's behavior had changed drastically. He now cowered at every noise and seemed to be hiding from something. Desperate to understand, Sam checked with the shelter and learned that the dog had a history of being found in abandoned, haunted places. The shelter's staff hinted at Max's previous encounters with malevolent forces. Sam realized that Max had been exposed to something beyond comprehension during his absence. The house's unsettling atmosphere persisted, and Sam could never fully understand what had frightened Max so profoundly. Emily lived in a quaint cottage at the edge of a dense forest. She enjoyed the solitude until she began feeling an invisible presence. Strange noises and cold spots became frequent, and she felt as though someone or something was watching her every move. One night, Emily heard a scratching sound outside her window and saw shadowy figures moving in the darkness. She decided to install motion sensor lights around the property. To her horror, the lights revealed no one, but the unsettling feeling continued. Emily discovered that previous tenants had reported similar experiences. Research revealed that the cottage was built on land with a tragic history of disappearances. The sensation of being watched was linked to restless spirits of those who had vanished, forever haunting the area in search of closure. Rachel found an old diary at a garage sale. The diary's pages were filled with disturbing entries about a woman's descent into madness and her eventual disappearance. Intrigued, Rachel kept the diary, but strange things soon began happening. Unsettling dreams, eerie sounds, and a growing sense of dread. Rachel tried to return the diary, but it was too late. The disturbances escalated. She learned that the diary had once belonged to a woman who had been cursed by a vengeful spirit. The entries revealed details of dark rituals and pleas for help that were never answered. Desperate to rid herself of the curse, Rachel performed a cleansing ritual as described in the diary. Though the disturbances lessened, she could never fully escape the feeling of the malevolent presence that had followed her. The diary's dark history left an indelible mark on her life, reminding her of the dangers that lurk in forgotten pages. Tom moved into a high-rise apartment building known for its strange occurrences. One evening, while alone, he decided to test a local urban legend about a game involving the building's elevator. According to the story, if you press a specific sequence of buttons, the elevator will take you to another dimension. Tom followed the instructions meticulously. Press floor 1, then 5, then 2, and finally 10. The elevator jolted and the lights flickered. When the doors opened, Tom found himself in an eerie, dimly lit version of his own building. Everything was slightly off. The walls were peeling, and the air was thick with a musty smell. As he explored, he noticed shadowy figures moving in the corners of his vision and heard whispers in a language he didn't understand. Panicked, he rushed back to the elevator, but the doors wouldn't open. When they finally did, Tom was back in his building, but with a chilling realization, the figures and whispers had followed him back. His apartment felt different, and every night since, Tom would hear those same whispers growing louder, hinting that he had brought something malevolent from the other dimension. Jenny had just purchased an old house with a history of being on the market for years. While exploring the basement, she discovered a hidden trapdoor beneath a rotting rug. Curious, she pried it open and found a small, hidden basement filled with old furniture and strange symbols drawn on the walls. Among the items, she found a diary detailing disturbing rituals and occult practices. As she read through it, she realized the previous occupant had been involved in dark magic, attempting to summon otherworldly entities. That night, Jenny started experiencing bizarre phenomena. Objects moved on their own. Strange noises echoed through the house, and shadowy figures appeared at the edge of her vision. The diary had unleashed a presence she couldn't control. Desperate to rid herself of it, she sought help from paranormal experts, only to find that the rituals had permanently disturbed the house's spiritual balance. The presence remained, a constant reminder of the horrors that lay hidden beneath her home. Emma inherited a beautiful, antique painting from her great-aunt, a renowned artist. She hung it in her living room, admiring its dark, enigmatic beauty. Soon after, Emma began noticing that the painting seemed to change subtly. Faces in the background seemed to shift, and shadows moved when she wasn't looking. One night, Emma saw a figure emerge from the painting, a shadowy, distorted face that seemed to reach out. She tried to remove the painting, but it was as if it was fused to the wall. Terrified, she sought out the history of the artist, only to discover that many of his paintings were rumored to be cursed. Each one held a piece of a tormented soul, forever trapped within the artwork. Emma's attempts to rid herself of the painting were futile. It became a permanent fixture in her home, and the figure within it seemed to grow more menacing, feeding off her fear and despair. In a small town, a young couple named Laura and Dan decided to explore a local landmark, an old, abandoned bridge with a tragic history of disappearances. They ventured there one foggy evening, hoping to uncover the mystery behind the bridge. As they approached, they saw ghostly apparitions of people who had vanished over the years. The apparitions seemed to beckon them to the edge of the bridge. Laura and Dan, both fascinated and frightened, decided to leave, but the fog thickened and the bridge seemed to stretch infinitely. When they finally managed to turn back, the bridge had vanished, leaving them stranded in the fog. They wandered aimlessly until dawn, eventually stumbling back to town. To their horror, they discovered that their ordeal had been a replay of the very disappearances they had come to investigate. The bridge had claimed them for a night, only to release them, forever altering their perception of reality. Mike and his friends decided to camp in a remote forest known for its strange occurrences. Locals spoke of a forbidden area deep within the woods where people had gone missing. Intrigued, the group set out to explore this area, armed with flashlights and camping gear. As night fell, they ventured into the forbidden section. Strange noises and flickering lights unnerved them, but they pressed on. They came across an ancient, overgrown structure with inscriptions in a language they didn't recognize. The inscriptions warned of a malevolent spirit that preyed on those who ventured too close. The group laughed off the warnings until they started experiencing terrifying phenomena: shadows moving on their own, disembodied voices calling their names, and an overwhelming sense of dread. They hurriedly left the forest, but the encounter left a lasting impact. Each member of the group began to suffer from haunting nightmares and a pervasive feeling of being watched, a consequence of their brush with the forbidden. Emily rented a small apartment in a historic building. The previous tenant had mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind a few personal items and a chilling atmosphere. Emily soon discovered that the building had a dark history of unexplained events and disappearances. One evening, Emily received a package addressed to her, but it contained items belonging to the previous tenant: photographs, a diary, and an old, unsettling journal. As she read the diary, she realized the previous tenant had been documenting disturbing experiences and paranoia about being watched. Emily's own experiences mirrored those documented in the diary. She heard unexplained noises and saw shadowy figures at the edge of her vision. The apartment's dark history seemed to repeat itself, trapping Emily in a cycle of fear and paranoia. She eventually learned that the building's disturbing legacy was tied to a series of unresolved cases of missing persons, each tenant becoming part of a sinister pattern. Sarah found an old locket in an antique shop and decided to buy it as a gift for herself. The locket was intricately designed and seemed to have a personal touch. Shortly after wearing it, Sarah began experiencing unsettling dreams and seeing strange apparitions in her home. The locket, she discovered, had once belonged to a woman who had vanished under mysterious circumstances. Research revealed that the locket was rumored to be cursed, a vessel for the spirit of the woman who had been wronged and was now seeking revenge. Sarah's dreams grew increasingly vivid, depicting the woman's final moments and her suffering. The presence of the spirit became more pronounced, and Sarah felt an oppressive weight in her home. She tried to rid herself of the locket, but the spirit's grip was relentless, leaving Sarah trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. In a small town, a group of friends decided to explore an abandoned asylum that had been closed for decades. The asylum had a dark history of mistreatment and unexplained deaths. Armed with flashlights and cameras, they ventured inside. The asylum's derelict state was unsettling, but the friends pressed on, documenting their findings. They encountered disturbing sights: old medical equipment, rusted restraints, and unsettling patient records. The atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive as they explored deeper into the asylum. One of the friends, Tom, began experiencing hallucinations and hearing disembodied voices. The group became separated, and Tom stumbled upon a room filled with old patient files, including his own name. The asylum's dark past seemed to have manifested, trapping Tom in a nightmarish loop. The friends eventually escaped, but Tom was never found, his fate a chilling reminder of the asylum's malevolent legacy. A young woman named Lisa moved into a new apartment that seemed perfect, until she began hearing a persistent whispering in the dead of night. The whispers were unintelligible at first, but grew clearer over time, repeating phrases like, "Come closer," and "You're not alone." Desperate for answers, Lisa consulted a paranormal investigator who revealed that the apartment had a history of unsettling events and previous tenants who had reported similar experiences. The whispers were believed to be the voice of a restless spirit, trapped between worlds and seeking something. As the whispers grew louder and more demanding, Lisa felt a growing sense of dread and paranoia. The apartment's eerie atmosphere escalated, and she eventually discovered that the spirit was seeking closure for a tragic event that had occurred in the building years ago. Lisa's attempts to address the spirit's needs only intensified the haunting, leaving her in a constant state of fear and uncertainty. Lena, a young woman living alone in a rural house, began hearing a disembodied voice calling her name. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but the voice became more insistent and distinct over time. It seemed to come from various parts of the house, especially at night. One evening, while investigating the source of the voice, Lena found an old hidden room in the attic. Inside, she discovered a collection of old letters and photographs detailing the life of a woman who had lived in the house many decades ago. The letters revealed that the woman had gone missing under mysterious circumstances. Her cries for help never answered. Lena realized that the voice was not a mere prank, but the desperate plea of the woman who had perished in the house. As Lena read the final letter, the voice grew more intense and urgent, filling the house with a chilling atmosphere. Lena's attempts to contact the authorities only led to more unanswered questions. The voice continued to haunt her, a constant reminder of the unresolved mystery that lingered within the walls of her home. Sophie bought an antique doll from a flea market, drawn to its intricately designed clothing and lifelike eyes. She placed it in her living room, but soon began experiencing strange occurrences. The doll seemed to move on its own, and Sophie would often find it in different positions than where she had left it. The disturbances escalated. The doll's eyes seemed to follow Sophie, and she started having nightmares about the doll's previous owner, a young girl who had mysteriously disappeared. Research revealed that the doll was rumored to be cursed, possessing the spirit of the missing girl who had been searching for her family. Sophie's attempts to get rid of the doll only seemed to intensify its malevolent presence. The doll became a source of constant fear and anxiety, with the spirit's anguish growing stronger. Sophie ultimately decided to keep the doll, believing that confronting the spirit might help it find peace. The presence remained, a constant, eerie reminder of the curse that bound the doll to her life. Michael had just moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood, eager for a fresh start. His neighbor, Mr. Thompson, was an elderly man who welcomed him warmly. They exchanged pleasantries, and Michael soon learned that Mr. Thompson was a retired historian with fascinating stories about the town. One day, Michael noticed that Mr. Thompson's house was strangely quiet. The curtains were drawn, and there was no sign of the elderly man. Concerned, Michael knocked on the door, but no one answered. After a few days of silence, Michael decided to check in with the local authorities. They conducted a welfare check, but found nothing out of the ordinary. Mr. Thompson's belongings were still in the house, and his car was parked in the driveway. Weeks passed, and the mystery deepened. Neighbors reported that Mr. Thompson had never been seen leaving the house, yet his car had vanished. Michael became increasingly uneasy, especially when he found a hidden compartment in Mr. Thompson's home office, filled with unsettling documents about disappearances in the area. The police eventually declared Mr. Thompson missing, but no clues emerged. Michael couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Thompson's disappearance was linked to something darker and more sinister, and the absence of the friendly old man left a haunting void.